There's always part of our minds that wants to function based on our past experiences, based on what we've experienced, been told, or even read into. For the purpose of explaining this concept, I'm going to tell you a story. I was 5 years old, and I had an alcoholic for a father. The moment he started drinking, you never knew what was going to happen. But what you did know was that it was probably going to be bad. My mother had tried everything to help my dad, but nothing had worked. Because of it, the house was in constant turmoil. I remember constant yelling and fighting. The last straw was when my mother came home and found that because I hadn't eaten this beef soup that my dad had made me, he had belted me to the point where he had left my back bleeding. That was the last straw. My mother decided that that was it. She was getting a divorce. With all of this instability and with me being so fearful of my father, my situation was such where I would get to school and would just cry because I didn't want to be there. I couldn't cope with my life. I couldn't focus. I couldn't learn. I remember being so mad at my mother for leaving me there that one time I even kicked her. There was one person who could calm me down. Her name was Mrs. Sarabia. Mrs. Sarabia would tell me, "It's okay. You can relax. You're just here to play. You don't have to do anything." Looking back, I can see that that woman had a lot of love and empathy, and because of it, I would usually stay put in class. I had my good teacher and I had my mean teacher, whose name I don't even remember. My mean teacher probably saw me as a problem child who was overreacting. I remember her even threatening to paddle me. One day, the class was working on cutting on a straight line, as opposed to cutting something piece by piece. I had my scissors in hand and I was cutting, but I was taking my sweet time as I was cutting bit by bit. The mean teacher came by and told me, "You need to cut on the line." I completely disregarded her. After all, Mrs. Sarabia had told me that I was just there to play and I didn't have to do anything. A few minutes later, she came by again and said, "You don't listen, and because of it, you're gonna fail kindergarten. Besides, you don't know how to write your R's and S's." I scrambled to show her my homework and I said, "Yes, I can." She retorted, "It's too late. You've already failed kindergarten." That woman literally failed me. I mean, how many people do you know that have failed kindergarten? It was really scarring for me because even at such a young age, I felt like a loser. With time, my mind consciously forgot about that whole period in my life. But I didn't realize that what had happened had impacted me at a much deeper level. For years to come, all the way into my 20s, I would pick up a pair of scissors and my hand would shake. I just figured I didn't have the best nervous system. I never really questioned why I did what I did. I had gotten so used to being a certain way that I got used to it. Literally, decades went by. It wasn't until I started learning about how the mind works that I realized what my mind was doing. My mind had this strong association between any pair of scissors and the trauma that I had endured in the past. Once I figured it out, I started working on myself. And you wouldn't believe it, but my hands stopped shaking. I would hold scissors and my hands would be just fine. Poof, it was as though it had never happened. This is why it's so important to question any negative thought and behavioral patterns that you might be experiencing. You too might be carrying something that is no longer relevant to your life, that keeps you anchored in the past. It holds you back from moving confidently into the future, from succeeding. The reason why I've shared this very personal story is because I want to show you that the same way that I was able to move forward from this traumatic experience, that you too are able to move forward from any traumatic experiences that you've been through. Change is what is natural and normal, and it makes total sense that you can retrain your mind to where you're able to think, feel, and behave the way you want to, so that you're able to experience life on your terms. My point is that the same way I was able to change something that had been in my life for years to something positive, to something that doesn't even bother me anymore, to being positive, happy, joyful. The same way I've changed, you can change for the better too. I highly suggest that you subscribe to my YouTube channel so that you have access to ways of thinking that are going to really help you on your path. And so that you also have access to the audios that I'm going to be putting out. They're going to help you to really train your mind to what you want to do. Change is what is natural and normal. And you can totally go from being a negative person that has certain hang-ups to being a person that's empowered, that's confident, that's living life the way you want to. It's doable. So have faith in yourself and start the process.